Well, the row over the West Midlands Police Chief, Craig Guildford, goes on and on and on. And a report that came out today, and it was pretty conclusive from Sir Andy Cook, the Chief Inspector of Constabulary, basically said that he'd given misleading public statements. And that led to this response from the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, in the House of Commons today.
The ultimate responsibility for the force's failure to discharge its duties on a matter of such national importance rests with the Chief Constable. And it is for that reason that I must declare today that the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police no longer has my confidence.
Now, you would have thought, of course, that the Home Secretary would have the power to sack one of the 43 police chiefs in England and Wales. Not so, because the Conservatives changed all that back in 2011, all part of devolution, and that power now rests with police and crime commissioners. In the case of the West Midlands, it's a guy called Simon Foster, who's a Labour-elected police and crime commissioner, and he's waiting for further reports to come out on the 27th of January. Whether Craig Guildford lasts till then, I'm not sure. But this guy has got form. He's got form. You see, he blames AI. He says, I Googled the Maccabi fans, and on AI, I was told that they were violent, they were racist, they were awful. But actually, I'm going to show you now, this guy's got form. This was him in August 2024, shortly after the atrocities in Southport.
Salam alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the leaders and elders that have afforded me this opportunity to speak to you personally. There is one tier of policing that applies to all of us, and that means that we police without fear or favour. If there are events whereby the extreme right wing, for example, want to protest or turn up at a location very much unexpectedly or sporadically, please make sure that the police alone deal with those situations.
And if you pander to one particular section, if you basically tell them they've got special protections, guess what? Some of them start to behave badly, because a couple of weeks later, these were the scenes in Birmingham.
Community leaders have been speaking to the police as well, because...
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Right, I think, apologies for the language you're hearing, but a sense of the anger, I think you can hear there.
Yeah, Katie, I think Becky...
Truly shocking scenes in Birmingham. Not that it would worry Craig Guildford. He knew which community he supported and very clearly which one he didn't. And actually, the complete ignoring of the interests of the Jewish community came out in Sir Andy Cook's report today. My question is, why is he still there? I wonder whether you at home have got some theories. Tweet #Farage on GBNews or email farage@gbnews.com.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
I'm joined in the studio by Kwasi Kwarteng, regular on this panel, and Jeff Hoon, increasingly a regular on this panel. But to begin, Johnny Gould, broadcaster, Villa fan.
It landed on my head, this one.
Well, I know. Well done. Very good. and somebody who is deeply concerned about what's happening between communities in Birmingham.
Absolutely.
How is this bloke still there?
Yeah, well, apparently now Simon Foster, as you mentioned, the PCC guy, has to now refer to something called the Accountability and Governance Board on the 27th of January, where we're promised an open meeting. And it's at that point, 13 days' time, that if Guildford isn't gone already, he'll be sentenced presumably to sacking. But surely Shabana Mahmood revealing today that she doesn't have any accountability, she doesn't believe in this chief constable anymore, means that he's toast.
Well, you'd have thought so, but the law was changed.
Yeah, sure.
Back in this was the idea. The idea was we'd have elected police and crime commissioners. They would, because they're elected, in a way be very responsive to local opinion.
The idea, which I agreed with at the time.
Was it a mistake or not?
Well, look, it made sense because very often the people who are local on the ground are the ones who know the communities. And we used to call it a sheriff, because in America they have elected sheriffs. People know the communities. So we wanted to devolve that responsibility to what are now called police and crime commissioners. And that meant that they had an electorate and they were the ones who were on the ground who knew. In my county in Surrey, we had good police and crime commissioners, and they were people that people could identify with, the voters could see. And they were the ones who took the responsibility. Now, in this case, you've got a situation where the Home Secretary is saying, I have no confidence in this man, which is, in the old days, you've got to go. He would walk. If he had any sense of propriety, he would... No. So, once the Home Secretary says, I have no confidence in you, that's kind of a signal that you've got to walk the plank.
Well, I'd have thought so. I mean, I'll tell you what, if we were back in the Blair government days with David Blunkett as Home Secretary, this bloke wouldn't still be there, would he?
I think that's clear, and I think he should walk. But I suspect the explanation is a rather simpler one. I read today that the Chief Constable was taking legal advice, and my suspicion is that the Commissioner is having to go through a process that satisfies whatever legal advice he's getting before he takes that decision. If he's seen simply to respond to the public outcry, that might be challengeable in the courts. My sense is that he's got legal advice. The legal advice says, go through a process, then you can decide.
I wouldn't have thought the Jewish community in Birmingham feel like that, Johnny.
No, we're talking about the police and we're talking about Birmingham, and this sounds like the Oslo Accord settlement in Zone B, where the cops talk to the elders in Zone B. Zone A is the Palestinian Authority. Zone B is sort of the Palestinian Authority, but with elders. Zone C is where Israel can build its towns and cities. So we cannot have governance like that with no fear and no favour. We can't have people talking to elders saying, no, we don't want policing here.
But just on this, I mean, what I found shocking was his excuse, saying he saw it on AI. What happened is that he Googled it. You can verify whether a real match took place in about 2 seconds.
Well, we now know, Kwasi, that there were mosques in Birmingham.
Yes.
One or two of fairly questionable
radicalised
history,
perhaps,
who were actually advising on this.
Yeah, sure. So all he had to do was Google, and you could see that whether the match was fake in a second.
And the Birmingham Jewish community is tiny. The Birmingham Jewish community is 1,500 strong. And it's high 100 years ago, there were 10,000 Jewish people. It really wasn't ever a big community.
No, not like Manchester. I mean,
no, it's not like Manchester or indeed London.
So it's declined that much?
It's declined that much. There is still Jewish life there. There's a very big synagogue in the city centre. There are a great rabbi in Rebbetzin who run it. But ultimately, it's a Jewish community in decline, and they have been gaslit in the worst possible way.
Sure.
Really terrible.
Yeah, and Johnny, you clearly feel very strongly about this. But, Jeff makes the argument that, you've got a police and crime commissioner, has to go through the legal process, but isn't it really a matter of what's right and wrong?
I was going to say, when law is applied this much, it becomes like a tyranny over the morality and common sense of these issues. And you mentioned David Blunkett before in the Blair area. Yeah, he would have on your bike, son, as Tony Butler used to say in Birmingham.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Johnny. I'm not sure what happens next. Is he really going to hang on to the 27th, Jeff? He can't, surely.
I would have thought his position is completely untenable.
Sure.
And it would make sense for him to walk, as I said earlier. But until he does, there has to be the right legal process to remove him.
I spoke yesterday, Johnny, to a senior business figure from the West Midlands who suggested to me that throughout the police force, throughout the education system, in the West Midlands, that actually there were some really pretty extreme Islamist influences that have buried themselves pretty deep into our structures. Do you share that fear?
Well, I'm going to take this down to King David's School, which was the primary school that I was educated in Birmingham. It is an area of Moseley which used to be a very vibrant Jewish community. It had a synagogue, it had a kosher butcher, and it had this primary school, and it even had a deli and an old people's home, and all that's left now is the old people's home, because that's what's there now. The King David's School has 90% Bangladeshi and Pakistani children in it, but they still maintain Jewish education for the 15 Jewish kids that are still there. The last 3 Jewish teachers there, including my first cousin, left at the end of last year because after October the 7th, the relationship with some of the parents broke down completely. It is a really sad state of affairs. 5 pillars got onto them and started spamming the internet that how dare they let the Muslim community celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, which was the Israeli Independence Day, because it's a Jewish school. And when the Muslims were in the minority at the school, there were always Muslim kids at the Jewish school. Yeah. This is the state of Birmingham now.
Yeah, and it's not just Birmingham. Think about Bristol. I mean, a Labour MP, duly elected at the last election, perfectly pleasant chap, effectively hounded out from speaking at a school in his constituency because those within the National Education Union decided because he was Jewish it wasn't suitable. It's a pretty bad state of affairs, Jeff.
Well, I understand that, but I lived in Leeds for many years where there's a very large Jewish community.
Yeah, there is.
But I suspect what's happened in Birmingham, and I'm not an expert on Birmingham, but it certainly happened in Leeds, is that when the Jewish community arrived in the 19th century, they settled in the centre of cities. But as they became more affluent and more successful, they moved to the suburbs. It's precisely what happened in Leeds. The centre of Leeds is an area called Chapeltown, which was a Jewish area historically. That has now been repopulated by different communities. The Jewish community is still the same numbers of people, but they now live in Alwoodley.
I mean, that's a historic explanation. But the reality, can I just say...
That's an explanation, but let me just tell you, as somebody who spent 20 years in Brussels and Strasbourg, I saw the Jewish populations in both of those cities start to flee. But look, where Jewish kids going to primary school, even in Strasbourg, had to have armed soldiers with them. So look, I think that's how things have changed.
I think we're very broadly looking at this. Very narrowly, October the 7th changed everything. Let's face it. October the 7th, 2023, those horrific attacks totally polarised this debate. As a consequence of that, at the election, we had, for the first time, people who were standing on an openly kind of Islamist ticket. I think the Islamification in politics is widening. I think the differences are hardening. And that single event, only, less than 3 years ago, has really triggered a lot of...
Yes, and you've got one very big population and one very small population.
It's polarised between what's right and what's wrong. The Jewish community is under siege and it's declining. And if the Jewish community continues to decline, it won't be because of particular persecution, which is going on. It'll be because of sentiment. Is the establishment with us or not?
But this is the
what
point I was
decision
making,
can we make
because
for
it
our children?
radicalised. I mean, you saw all in American universities, in my old university at Cambridge, there was a huge number, Jeff's old university, there was a huge number of students who they're not Muslim and they're not Jewish, but they're very much mobilised on the side of Palestine, on that debate. And I think that's toxifying.
It's happening across the West and it's serious. Johnny? Happy point to end on. Villa having a great season. Can they win the Premier League?
So I think they can, but obviously I'm not being hooked off just yet. We can definitely win the Europa League because Unai Emery, former Arsenal manager, has won it 4 times and lost in the 5th final when he was Arsenal manager. Yes, yes, and more yes.
I wish you well with that.